I've just pressed the live streaming button. Once Emily confirms that that's working okay from their end, then we're good to go.
It says connected.
This is obviously a public meeting, isn't it?
It is,
Rob,
Chairman.
yes.
Yeah.
Did you want to just somehow flash up the agenda just so that people know what we're doing and what the date is and what we are?
I can't check because I haven't got it on the machine.
Okay.
On the YouTube stream where it's live streaming to it does say what the committee is and what the date is.
Okay.
It's titled on that.
Brilliant.
Emily, are you able to confirm that it's live streaming? You're on mute. Sorry.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I was just waiting for the right time to say that. Yeah, it's all working fine.
Perfect. Okay, Chair, if you want to start, then you are free to do so.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to the Human Resources Committee and Development Committee on the 3rd of March 2021. So if we'd like to take the first item, apologies.
Chairman, I haven't received any apologies. We don't have Councillor Clayton with us, but I didn't receive an apology. We also have Andrew Saywell with us as an observer this morning.
Thank you very much. So if we'd like to move on to the next item, Sam, would you like to announce that?
The minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of December.
Thank you. Do any members have any matters arising from those minutes, please?
Chair, we wouldn't normally take matters arising on the minutes, but we should approve them as a correct record if that's possible.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I've got my council hat on. Thank you. So therefore, we'll approve those minutes. Thank you. So if we don't go on to sorry.
Is everybody happy to do that?
Yes, happy to do that, Councillor Peard.
Yes, second. No problem, Rob.
No problem.
So,
thank you.
Thank you, Sam. If we can now go on to the next item, please.
The next item, Chair, is urgent items, but we don't have any today.
Thank you very much. Do any members have any urgent items that they would like to bring in today? Take that as a negative. Thank you very much. So if we now move into the next item, please, Sam.
The next item, Chair, is the Health, Safety and Wellbeing Progress Report. And I think probably Joe will start that one off this morning.
Thank you very much, Joe. Just for the benefit of the public, if you'd just like to introduce yourself before you take the item, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Yes, so my name's Joe Hassel. I'm the Deputy Chief Fire Officer and I'm also the Director of People. So this report is around the health, safety and wellbeing of Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service employees. I've got two subject matter experts joining me to help present this. I've got Chris Elliott, who is our Health and Safety Manager, and I'd also like to introduce members to Jane White, who is our interim head of HR. As many of you may know, our existing head of HR, Steve Pope, left the organisation in January. So we've got Jane as an interim until we fill that post permanently. So welcome, Jane. I'm sure Rob and members will make you feel welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Welcome, Jane. Did you want to just say a few words about yourself for the benefit of members, Jane?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jane White. My full-time permanent role is as Head of Workforce and Brand with DELT Shared Services. We provide shared services to Plymouth City Council, Devon CCG. We also provide back office services to other public interest organizations. That's one of the reasons I've been brought in. So currently I am supporting Devon and Somerset to look at their HR provision and service, work closely with OD, and look to make some changes to support the deliverables through the people strategy. So looking forward to giving you updates now and in the future as well.
Thank you very much, Jane. That's very useful. Thank you. So if you'd like to go back and start the presentation, please, Joe.
Thanks. I'd like to hand over to Chris for the health and safety elements, if I may. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. If you want to make a start, please.
Good morning, Chair, members. Yes, so I'll just go through the report. I won't read it verbatim, but I'll highlight the areas as we go through. So there's been a number of areas we've been working through. So if I go to the proactive monitoring, which is section 2 of the report, and that's the NFCC, National Fire Chiefs Council audit that we did. There's been no progress on moving the actions on that one in the last reporting period. And that's mainly because of the spike in COVID, the third lockdown, and priorities being pushed into those areas. So we've not been able to move any of that. What I'm going to look at now is the remaining actions and the risk associated with any of those. And then when we identify the level of risk, we will hit the higher risk actions and work our way through it. And that's pretty much about capacity and needing to get the team to focus in certain areas. So we'll hit the higher risk stuff and work our way through on that one. If we move on down through, so the workplace health and safety inspection assessments, which is paragraph 2.3, there's been some movement on that, so that's really good. We've gone from 55% in the previous quarter to 84% complete. So the teams out there are working hard to get all the stations, all the locations in date with their workplace inspections. And just for note on the chart that you see there, I've turned it around as requested in the last meeting so that the target is 100%, with the figures showing how far we are towards that 100% target. And that was an adjustment made as a request last time. It's reactive monitoring then. So this is our RIDDLE reports primarily. If we go down to the chart, you can see that in the last quarter, occupational disease, where we've got on the chart right hand side, April, December, that's quite an increase. And if you go all the way through all the previous years, you don't see occupational disease at all. And this is because this is all COVID related. So that's 6 COVID RIDDLE reports that we've put in as a service to the HSE. And we've just had 2 more this present quarter now that have gone in as well. So yeah, let's just make you aware that those have gone in. But for staff of 2,000 staff, we're doing really well. A lot of this is internal type transfer with a few failings of controls by individuals within stations that's resulted in those RIDDLEs. If we go on to personal injuries, so that's 3.4. The trend is still the same, which is really good. The trend line, as you can see, is showing that it's dropping. So we're having less personal injuries. And that's because we report all injuries and we investigate all injuries and look at putting control measures in place and adjusting procedures where necessary. So that's really positive there. And as you can see on the chart on page 8 for personal injuries, the bar charts, there's a significant difference between previous years and this present reporting year with our injuries. So there's been some good work done with that, but I also don't know if it's COVID related, and that's a piece of work we can look at with our analysts to try and work out if the impact of COVID has actually reduced our injuries, because staff are more conscious and self-aware and acting safer to prevent COVID, which means that they're also reducing their injuries as a result. If I move on to 3.5 vehicle incidents, again, the chart line is showing a reduction. And it's an area that we're doing a lot of work on, driving for better business, driver training, psychometric testing, all these things that we're doing as a service to deal with any risk areas within our driving. And it's showing an improvement there. And again, on the yearly totals, which will be page 9, the vehicle incidents, you can see with the bar charts, it's very obvious there's a significant change there. And again, I don't know if this is potentially linked to COVID, and that's one for our analysts to look at to try and work out whether there's a sort of a positive outcome of COVID is the fact that it's reduced our injuries and our vehicle incidents. Before I go on to the next piece, is there any questions on the reports as I've gone through thus far?
Yes, Councillor Peart has a question.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, Ron. Would you like to take that one forward now, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you to Chris. It's on the 3.4, page 7, personal injuries. you've set up a musculoskeletal group. What's the most common cause of injuries in that area? And what are you doing about it, Chris?
So historically, it's been manual handling type injuries, and ones related to like slips and trips, which is incident ground stuff. So it's very hard to control the incident ground. We can't control the lay of the land and how that works. It's about our procedures and our safe actions when we're on those areas. But with the manual handling, we do manual handling training that's rolled out to the stations. They do e-learning and then practical manual handling training. And there's a refresher period for that as well. And also with our new appliances coming in, we will do manual handling assessments on the kit and equipment that goes into the appliance to make sure it's safe when the crews are accessing it, to try and prevent injuries from just accessing the equipment. So we're doing a lot in that area to try and bottom it out. But musculoskeletal across the UK, it's one of the target areas for the HSE. So it's an area of concern across all industries. We're not alone with this one.
Okay, so is there anything this committee can do to help in any way with equipment?
I guess it's support for any specific types of equipment that might need additional funding to bring into service, or different ways of working with some of our kit and equipment potentially. But I see Joe's got his hand up there.
Okay, thank you. Joe, did you want to come in there, please?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Councillor. And I think so members will remember that you've also helped us fund through our capital reserve some small vehicles, rapid intervention vehicles and light rescue pumps. So those have the kit on those are designed for people. So some of our other equipment where we've traditionally needed 4 people to lift them, a lot of the equipment that we're looking at, we need less people. So they're lighter equipment, more modern equipment. And that is another way that will reduce injuries. A lot of the new equipment that's coming out there is actually only now 1 person lift where it used to be maybe 2 or 3. So again, so yes, members have already supported us on that by supporting the capital budget and the other revenue spend that we do. Thank you.
Thank you both for that.
Thank you, Joe. Just before I bring George in, who wants to, and David, I think he wants to come in. Joe, if I can just add in there as well, or to both of you even, also, what about the respiratory and breathing issues and the equipment there? And I was just wondering really if we could have, maybe not as an agenda item, but maybe as a sort of briefing paper to the next committee, the work that you've just outlined, Joe, in terms of what we're actually spending it on. Because I think, again, you know, we've agreed the budget. You know, that's great, and to address the issues that you're talking about. But I think members like to get a bit of a feel of what that looks like, and you know, what you've just explained to me as a lay person, you know, makes it completely obvious why we've spent that money and what it's going to do. And I'm not quite sure we've actually got that sort of information, which I think members would appreciate. So as I said, just before I bring in the others, I mean, I think some time ago we made a decision to improve our breathing apparatus and etc. Do you have a bit of an update on that, and has that been successful?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So we've rolled out completely new breathing apparatus sets across the entire workforce now. So every single fire station now has brand new state-of-the-art breathing apparatus, which again was funded through reserve. We also, so this is hot off the press, we are also just implementing, this is for members of the public, escape hoods. So members may know through the Grenfell Tower inquiry, one of the recommendations was to have hoods on appliances so that members of the public could be escorted down smoke-filled environments such as stairwells, but also can be used in rescues from anywhere really where we're worried about the atmosphere. So they are just in the process of being rolled out to all frontline appliances now, and that's a work in progress. But I'm happy to give a report at the next meeting, Chair, that probably outlines how some of our kit has affected and improved our health and safety, if that would work.
Yes, that's excellent. I think that would really meet on these. Because I know we did make those decisions, and you say it's hot off the press, but you know, if we have a bit more detailed look at that, I think that would be really good next time. Thank you very much. I think George, you were next, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can you tell us how you want us to indicate that we'd like to speak, please? Do you want us?
I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat, and I also rely on Sam to keep an eye on the chat. But if not, if you just want to pop up with your hand up, you've both put X's in chat, so I'm assuming that is a indication to speak as well. So Sam, do you have a preference?
I don't mind.
All right, okay, right. Well, Sam, you're on mute. Sorry.
I'm keeping an eye on it for you, Chair. If I see anybody indicating, I will advise.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you very much. So we've got a list now. So we've got George, David, and then Mike. Okay. So George, did you want to take the first one, please?
I had several, Chair, but if I ask.
No, that's fine. You carry on.
On paragraph 2.2, the audit progress, there's a note at the bottom of the table that the number has increased. The total count increased by 8 because of previously unanswered questions. Are there any other unanswered questions, please? Will that count be increasing again?
No, it won't increase now because we've gone through it, and where we had nil responses previously, we've managed to put responses in those. So that is as is now.
Okay, so 496 is going to be the number of actions.
It's more than that when you add in the non-compliant and working towards. So 496 is the compliant action.
Oh, sorry, yeah, right. Yeah, the total is of the 3. Okay, thanks, Chair. I'd like to come in after other people again, please.
I think you're on mute, Chair.
Oh, sorry, George. Sorry. Did you want to come in now with your other questions while you've got the floor, or did you want to let others in and come back?
If you don't mind me coming straight, okay, thanks very much.
Okay.
Paragraph 3.3, the HSC has requested the investigation report on one of the RIDDOR incidents. Can you tell us why the interest in that, and are you, without disclosing anything that we shouldn't be disclosed in public, can we know a bit more, please?
Yeah, that's fine. When we first reported it to the HSE, they phoned me up and asked if they felt it maybe wasn't a RIDDOR report and that we might have over-reported. So they asked for some details about the incident, which I gave them. They then agreed, yes, it was a RIDDOR report, but asked for the investigation to be sent across once we'd concluded it, which is what I've done. They've since asked to speak to the rep bodies, so they've spoken with the health and safety rep for the FBU, and following that, have asked me for some more details. Their primary concern is around the ventilation of the facility, how we've worked out room capacities, and this has come in just recently, which I've answered and responded back to them. I'm now waiting for their response back to me. But initially, they're very pleased with how we've conducted our COVID secure arrangements, how we do our internal track and trace, and how we are following up with our investigations, because we do very thorough investigations with this. So they're very pleased with how we've handled it, how we've implemented new control measures from identifying where there may be some, areas for improvement. So they're really pleased with how we're doing it. And I think they're just boxing off areas now just to make sure they're fully content. And with the ventilation side, just for awareness, with the particular facility that we're looking at, the ventilation is literally just opening windows. There isn't any other air conditioning concerns and things like that where you might be recirculating internal air.
George, does that help?
Well, yes, yeah, that's fine, Chair. I think Joe was going to comment.
Okay, thank you. Joe, do you want to come in, please?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to add a bit of context for that, Councillor, as well. This was raised about 6 months ago in the National Fire Chiefs Council Chiefs Call because, of course, being an emergency service, we couldn't send all of our staff home and had to try and make sure we had the right control measures in place. So it's something that's been flagged through the NFCC. We've seen, of course, we have very, very few RIDDOR reportable incidents that happen. And as Chris has outlined, this year we've had quite a few, and that's we've seen the same across all other fire and rescue services. I think the thing that we're really proud of is that we have a working group that Chris has been part of in the People Cell, who we work closely with trade unions to make sure that all of our health and safety areas around COVID are completely agreed, and that our staff are completely engaged in how we do that, and we have regular meetings with them to make sure that we are safe. So thankfully, as Chris said, the health and safety executive have praised us for the measures that we put into place. So we'd like to try and stop these happening, and that's why we investigate every single case and make sure that we're learning from each one. And when we get to the people strategy update, Michelle will talk to you about how we're making sure that we get that learning from things like health and safety events and put it into practice. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I was pleased to hear Chris say that the only technology implications are opening of windows. Very quite comforting. I think my last one is on paragraph 4.3, the reference to outsourcing and looking for additional support. Is that budgeted for, or will that be a environment somewhere, please?
That element of the report I've not actually gone through yet. Is whether you want me to go through that part of my report now or take questions on the previous sections first. I'm quite content to go through this part now.
I think I'd like you to actually take questions as to where we are now and then go through your report, Chris, if that's all right for you, George.
Yes, sorry, I got ahead of myself. Sorry.
No,
Thanks, Chair. That was all my
nothing
questions. Thank you.
Nothing like being keen on a foggy morning, George. So, there you are. David, did you want to come in, please?
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. I just want to pick up from where George left off, because that's my question originally. So let's go back to 2.2 and just to talk a little bit more about the increase in the total number of audits by 8. And I want to go back to 2018 and 2019, when obviously those missing 8 questions were not included in the data. Obviously, we weren't compliant on those 8 questions that, for whatever reason, we were unable to answer. So I just want to try and understand why they weren't included either in the non-compliant or working towards section. How come they just disappeared off the graph totally?
It's the form that we fill out is like a spreadsheet, and it counts when you put something in there, and because they were left blank, it just didn't count them. And it was when we went through it and discovered them that there was a number of questions that had been missed out that had been sent to the lead for that particular area, and it had never come back. So when we then started to dig into it and try and get the answers, we eventually got the answers put in, and it only counts when you either put a not applicable or compliant, non-compliant, or working towards. And this had nothing in it, so it just didn't count it. It was like a flaw in the spreadsheet.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I understand. So it's easily missed. And I just want to move on, please, to talk about injury to person and also vehicle incidents. And I just want to combine this question with the two, really. So it's a positive, real positive from what we see in the report, that a fall in those numbers. And you've already said that could be down to COVID, because it could be down to people taking more care. I guess I just want to put into another part of that pot to see where we are in terms of like the kind of work that we've done. In other words, number of call outs, number of incidents that we've been to over the last year. One would have presumed that they were reduced significantly this year because of the current situation and the lockdown and the less traffic on the road for that certain period of time could absolutely be a factor in why that number has reduced. And I don't know if you have that data, or if you think it is a reasonable assumption that could be the case that we're looking at, because we've been to less places, we've done less incidents, or understandably we're going to have less people injured or less vehicle incidents.
So I think from the first lockdown, that was most definitely the case, and it was noticeable that we saw everything dropping with injuries, vehicle incidents. The reports weren't coming in. And it was because I think the lockdown in the first time was very thorough and people really did stay at home. I think this third lockdown is slightly different in that it doesn't seem to be as harsh, for want of a better word, where people are literally locking down and not moving anywhere. So I don't have the stats for our activities, but I believe it's probably not as reduced as we would have thought this time round.
I
what
understand.
I'd like to do is at the end of the 12-month period is get sort of the data team to run that piece of work, to look at it, and then we can really pull from that.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, Chris, about the two different experiences of lockdown. But obviously, this is for a 2021 year, so which is a whole year. I think it might be interesting to see across the year. I think Joe wants to come in anyway.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, David. Joe, did you want to come in on that one, please?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, actually. And so we, as members may know, we get a weekly community report from our strategic analyst team to have a look at what essentially around incident types. So certainly RTC's reduced at the beginning. You're right, Councillor, because of less traffic on the road and lockdown, and it reduced significantly. And Chris might be able to help with this. You know, musculoskeletal injuries, you know, is usually around carrying heavy equipment over rough ground, which of course RTCs or road traffic collisions is exactly that environment. You know, it is a dangerous environment with a lot of heavy lifting and in difficult positions. We did see a reduction throughout last year in there. That's now back up to normal levels now. We also saw a slight reduction in domestic fires and certainly commercial fires. We did see a rise in wildfires and rubbish fires and fires in the outdoors and also co-responding. We'll probably need to do a lot more detailed analysis to understand whether those incidents, how they affect our health and safety statistics. But hopefully that helps with a bit of context, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. David, does that conclude your points?
Thank you very much. It does indeed, Chair.
Thank you. Ron, sorry, Mike, I think you'd like to come in, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was just digging in a little bit more to 3.5, the vehicle incidents. Is it possible to know, obviously I would be more concerned if the incidents were the majority collisions with other road vehicles. But obviously you can damage the vehicle by misjudgment and hitting it on a wall or whatever it is. Is there a way that you can give a flavour of what these incidents are categorised as?
So the reporting system we have at the moment is quite challenging to get that level of detail out of. The next new system that's being developed, we will be able to do all that. Generally, because I know this from previous years and it's an ongoing trend, a lot of our vehicle collisions are very minor in nature, and it's scraping against narrow roads, and it's hedgerows, bollards at the side of roads, and sadly narrow streets where cars are parked too close together or jutting out slightly where we might catch them when we're responding going through those sorts of environments. So it's low level, slow speed manoeuvring is what we call it. So a lot of our vehicle incidents are slow speed manoeuvring incidents.
Okay, so if it was actually an RTA where there was a collision between a vehicle and one of our appliances, that would still come in this category, but it wouldn't be reported any differently than the rest.
It would come in as a vehicle incident, but it would be categorised within our safety system, and we would know, and it would dictate the level of investigation. So if it's just a minor scrape, that's like the level 1. If it's a collision with a significant collision, that goes up to level 3. And we had the appliance that slid off the road in the ice. That was a level 3 investigation just to get to the bottom of what went on there, and that was black ice. So the nature of the incident dictates the level of investigation we throw at it, so we can categorise in that sense.
Yeah, that might be useful to know the categories. At least you'd know the severity of what was going on. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you. So again, Joe and Chris, I think again, I think members like to have a bit more. I know it's difficult. It's a strategic report, but you've got to try and give case studies and give a bit of context. So, I mean, is there a way again of capturing some of that data that's possible to give members a bit of a feel? Maybe in your overall next report, Chris, or finding some way to capture that balance?
Yeah, I can certainly look at that, Chair. I can either do it by the level of safety event, so vehicle incidents by level of safety event, or I could even look at see if we can pull out of the back of the system, as it were, the nature of the event. So what type of vehicle incident it was. Was it a proceeding? Was it a minor slow speed manoeuvring? That sort of thing. So I might be able to get that as well. But that does tend to mean there's a lot more detail that comes in with that.
Yeah, I know it's really difficult. We have the same problem on other committees that I sit on, where we'll go in one direction of more detail, and then people will sort of challenge that and say, no, we need to be more strategic. So I know it's a really difficult balancing act, but maybe if we can give it a try, and perhaps Mike, you can give us a 1 out of 5 when you get it, to see if you think it's the way it ought to be presented. Ron, were you indicating you wanted to come back in?
Yes, yes, Chair, please. It's along the same theme, to be honest. How much does it cost us insurance claims on our premium? It's more detail yet again, but I'd be interested to know. It is a slight decrease, and I know it's difficult, and you do some driver training as well, but there must be a cost that comes with collisions, and I just wondered what the figures were.
In order to answer that one, I'll have to go to our risk and insurance team, but they do have all that, so we can certainly bring that in to the next meeting.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Ron. Again, those are really important points. Just before we do move on to the next section, Chris, this section is heavily sort of around where COVID has or has not affected some of the health and safety issues, etc. And I know we're not out of the woods yet, are we, by any stretch of the imagination? But in terms of the sort of learning and improving from COVID agenda, do you think we'll be able to sustain some of those potential benefits from the more careful working, or will inevitably we lose them because people will be less careful because we won't have to be putting masks and PPE on, and we won't be thinking, the sort of what I'm really interested in is almost the behavioural psychology of it, really, and how we can try and at least keep some of those benefits from the more cautious approach.
No, I would certainly like to see this moving forward as part of a more sort of positive safety culture that's benefited from the way that staff have approached COVID, because they have been more safety aware and more conscious when they're out on the incident ground, because COVID is that risk that's right there and everybody knows about it. So it's very relevant, and if they can keep that mindset moving forwards, it will be fantastic. And we are going to be doing some cultural work as well, and it'll help tie in with that we're going to hopefully sort of springboard off of this positive approach that's been seen here into a positive safety culture moving forward. So I would really like to see that moving forward, that teams that have become champions for safety, because I know people out there within the fire service that have changed their view and opinions of health and safety isn't a barrier, it's there to support and guide and things, and that's been fantastic to see that. And COVID's helped deliver that, because my team have been working really closely with some of the other teams that they don't normally get to work with, and that's helped influence it as well. So there's been some really good positives that come out of it that I really do want to see moving forward. So yeah, that's our intent, most definitely.
Thank you very much. Joe, you'd like to come in, please?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, there's some interesting detail that members probably won't be aware of. So Chris and others have helped establish kind of COVID, we've called them COVID marshals actually, on every station, who are directly responsible for making sure that all the COVID arrangements on that particular station are up to date. We see that role transferring into as something that we used to have, and actually it's drifted off a bit in having health and safety kind of people on every station to make sure that exactly these kind of things are adopted. I think from our perspective, I think the genie's out the bottle, so I don't think anybody wants to go back to perhaps some of the cultural ways in which we worked before. I can see a change in everybody, and actually we're going to pick this up a little bit with the people strategy, and Chris referenced it around our Safe 2 intervention, around making sure people are safe to challenge and safe to say if something's not right, and Michelle will talk about that in detail. It's all part of this bigger part around the people strategy.
Thank you very much to both of you. If there aren't any more questions on this section, Chris, would you like to resume your presentation, please?
Certainly, Chair. So it's just really this section 4 is the last part for me, really, and it's to just really say that the team have been working really hard through COVID, providing the help, guidance and support within the service to the various cells. It does mean we have been exceptionally busy. We've also put some COVID secure audits out there. So, you know, we're checking our stations, making sure they're COVID secure, and any learning from that we act on immediately where needed, and we're looking at the trends as well. So the team have got a high volume of work, and we're looking at potentially whether we can outsource elements of the workload. So, for instance, I've got members of my team that are trained to do vibration assessments, but capacity at the moment to be able to go out and do the volume of vibration assessments on our tools is potentially too much. So we can look at outsourcing that piece of work to get somebody to come in, do the work, and then it puts us back into a good position with our vibration assessments. So yeah, it's there's a lot going on for health and safety at the moment, as you can imagine. Because of COVID, it's very much health and safety orientated. And then moving forwards, we're going to be involved with, you know, the cultural work and any other work streams, the MRP project and things like that moving forwards. So busy times for the team. But yeah, we're just working hard and dealing with it as we go through, but supporting the service in every element to do with health and safety. It's just to highlight that, really. Is there any, that's my part before I hand over to Jane. Is there any questions before we hand it across to Jane?
Thanks, Chris. Do we have any more questions for Chris or Joe at this point?
Just one quick one from Councillor Peart regarding health and safety. Carpal tunnel syndrome, what they used to call white finger. Is there any equipment which is less damaging to use than the equipment? I know it's difficult using, or is all our equipment electric battery operated now, or is it still fuel operated? And is there a piece of equipment which would help firefighters, obviously when they're using this equipment, not to get that kind of injury?
So this is part of why we get involved with all the projects as they come through. So we will give that sort of advice to the research and development team as they bring items in, and we do try and reduce the risk where we can. So we'll always opt for a product that produces less noise, less vibration, is lighter, you know, so we're trying to hit with, you know, the hearing, the white finger and manual handling issues straight away. And we do that at the point of, you know, looking at the kit and equipment that they're proposing to bring in. And there is a lot more battery operated equipment out there. So yes, we do try and do that. And if we can procure something that's got, you know, vibrates less, then that's the option that we would lean towards. So that's all part of the procurement processes that we go through routinely with new kit and equipment coming into the service. But if I may say, that the area of concern really for vibration isn't the frontline firefighters and that end. It's more of our fleet maintenance technicians and the kit they use, and the estates technicians and the kit they use. That's the areas where we see more usage. So it's their kit and equipment primarily that we would be more concerned about.
So Chris, if I can just follow on from what Ron has just said, and maybe it's more you, Joe, than Chris. If, for example, we needed some of that new kit that helped with those particular problems, it's not a resource issue. You're not making the decision whether to purchase or get that. You've got the resource you need to help with that particular condition for our firefighters, presumably, hopefully. If not, we'll ask that you do, I think. But
yeah, so how it works, Chair, is that any health and safety issues are flagged through our reporting system. They'll go straight to Chris, and then Chris will advise us. So we have, as you're having now, we'll have our monthly performance updates around health and safety, accidents, injuries. any issues around that are investigated, and then we'll have recommendations that will come to us. No, we have reserves to do exactly that. So if we do need to replace equipment because of health and safety issues in it, and it does happen every now and again, not often, but it does happen every now and again, we have a process where we can escalate very quickly, find the resources for that, and deal with it very quickly. So yes, there's a good process for that, Chair.
Thank you. So thank you very much. Ron, does that deal with your questions?
Yes, that's covered it. As long as we're on the case there, and if we can help, obviously we will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris, for your part of the presentation. So, Jane, would you like to now come in, please, and take the next section?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, absolutely. So just a case in point, I think for this report, what I've done, as I'm early days within Devon and Somerset, just 7 weeks in, what I've done is just mirrored the report as it looked for your last committee meeting. So I haven't made any changes or adapted it, but certainly after we go through the data and some further information around that, if there's anything you'd like to see added into the report, I'm happy to look at that for the next reporting period. I think the thing that is important to note that overall, while the trends for absence have and continue to decrease, one of the things that we, and this is very similar across a lot of organizations where due to COVID, people's exposure to other illnesses and sicknesses aren't happening. So seeing that common element of lower sickness rates is common, but what we can't do is rely on that to be the rationale. So I really want to stress in this meeting that we are putting a microscope on how we look at sickness and absence management, and that's taking an integrated approach. So some of the work that I've been involved in over the last few weeks have really been looking at from an HR, organizational development, and obviously health and safety plays a big role in that, is how do we manage that? And I'll pick up on what Chris said from a cultural standpoint. How are we changing the culture of how we look at absence and sickness and wellness overall? What I can share with you that's further detail in terms of where we have seen an increase, we've seen that in the areas of mental health, and that again, what we're seeing through the interactions with those individuals is that a lot of it again is attributed the opposite side to COVID. You'll see a lot in the media around the effects that COVID and isolation and being locked down has effect on people's wellness. So that's something that through our welfare officer, staff support, and mental health first aiders, we're looking at making sure that we're addressing that. So overall, again, I'll sort of leave it at that and open it up to questions from there.
Thank you, Jane. Do we have some questions for Jane, please? Or Joe, did you want to come in as well before I take questions?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, happy to support Jane. She's done a fantastic job since she's come in, and again, she's bringing her expertise in to really look and understand our sickness levels in more detail. So we hope in future reports we can have a more detailed report for you, which will really give us more categories, and that we can really look at that and members can help us scrutinise that. But no, I think everything that Jane said, fully support and happy to take any questions between us.
Thank you. And just to say, Jane, I'm sure all members do understand you've recently taken over, so inevitably you need to sort of get used to not only the data and the operations themselves, but also the culture of the fire authority. So we do get that you're very much learning on the job. So please, we do get that. I think I've got Mike first, please. Mike, would you like to come in? No,
I didn't have my hand up, so
I don't know whether Steve has messaged me in chat. So George, would you like to come in? George, would you like to
Yeah.
come in?
Yeah, I'm just unmuting myself. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I had got a question on 4.3 about resourcing, but Joe and Chris answered that in another context anyway. So just on 5.5, the trust and trace issues of the 12 and 84 who tested positive. Do you know how many of them had symptoms and how many didn't? It's not particularly relevant, but just out of
No, it's actually a really good question that I don't have the answer for, but certainly it's something that I can look to find out how we're collecting that data.
Okay, thanks. That was it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions for Jane, or are we content on this one? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
I think that's a no, Sam, is it not?
Chair, it's just a report to note. So if everybody's happy to do that, we can move on to item 5.
Brilliant. Thank you. And of course, with moving on, I think you've got the message there that we'd like another couple of reports and a bit more information in the next one. So I'll leave that in your capable hands. So we can now move on to item 5, which is the people strategy update. Joe, are you going to lead on this one, please?
I'm just gonna introduce it. Thank you, Chair. I've got some experts with me who are much closer to the detail and have been doing some fantastic work. So members will know that in 2019, with our staff, we devised our people strategy that's running for 3 years until 2022, and it focuses on 5 key areas, and they are leadership, ways of working, well-being, learning and development, and inclusion. So in the last HRMD, we gave you quite a detailed report that went into certainly lots of areas that have been worked on. Again, some of that has been disrupted by COVID, and Michelle and Matt, who are going to be presenting, and a lot of our teams have been within the welfare cell dealing with some of the stuff Jane was talking about earlier around making sure that our staff are looked after. However, they've still done some fantastic work. So Michelle's just going to go through some of the key areas of the report, and we've also got Matt, who's our lead on the people area around learning and development. He's going to demonstrate, if members are happy with that, or if you're happy with that, Chair, we're going to share the screen and we're going to show you some of the new tools and things so that it brings to life some of the things we're talking about, and you can see some of our new development tools.
Yes, that's excellent. Thank you, Joe. Michelle, before you just start, obviously we're in a public committee, so we'd just like to say who you are for the benefit of the public, please, and then you can start your presentation. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So good morning, members. I'm Michelle Sobey. I'm Head of Organisational Development. So as Joe said, since the last report to committee, we've done a lot of work to look at all the different areas of focus in the people strategy and pull them together into some really key pieces of work that will make a big difference and will help us to deliver the aspirations that we've got within that strategy. So there's a paper you have, but I've pulled together a presentation so that we can go through those pieces of work. And I'm going to bring Matt Head in, who's our people capability lead, after I've done the first 2 sections on leadership and learning and development, so that he can give you a bit of a deeper dive into some of the work that we've done. So if you bear with me a second, I'm just going to share my screen with you.
Thank you. Members, I think what I'll do, if it's all right with you, is what I did last time. So if we take it section by section, if you do have some questions or points, we'll do it that way rather than have the whole thing and maybe, you know, we lose some focus. So after Michelle's done her first part, if you've got any points or questions, do let me or Sam or Steve know. Thank you. Over to you, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you. So everyone can see the screen. I'm just checking that everyone can see that.
Yes.
Yes, no problem.
Great. So these are what we're calling our 5-star game changers, if you like, because if you think about when you go on a holiday and TripAdvisor gives you good reviews, these are the kind of reviews we want from our people, and some of the outcomes you'll see as we go through some of the things we want people to be saying about the organisation. So just a reminder of those themes of the people strategy: leadership, ways of working, well-being, learning, development and inclusion. And you'll remember from the strategy that none of these themes can be successful in isolation. They all need to work together and link together to make a difference. I won't labour on this, but really quickly, just around some of the achievements that have happened already around the people strategy. All of these in the left-hand column have already been reported to the last committee, but there's quite a long list of things that have been done despite and in spite of COVID, I would say. But also we've had a fair impact from COVID too. So the way we engage, particularly in OD, when we've been used to getting people together physically in lots of different places, that obviously has been a big impact on how we engage. So we've had to adapt and do things differently there. Our leadership training, which also a lot of that was face-to-face, we've had to adapt to that, and Matt will show you and tell you about. We've put together lots of virtual sessions now. Unfortunately, positive action also has been impacted, because obviously to do that we need to get into the community and talk to people and share what we do, and that hasn't been possible in the same way as normal. Our Connecting the Community project, which is about reaching out to more diverse communities equally, has been affected. Our recruitment, and then also, as you'll know, the impact on our well-being of staff, which we've been supporting. But there have also been lots of opportunities. So we have, sorry, I'm just trying to move something off my screen so I can see. So we've thought of different ways of doing things, and we've made sure that people are well supported throughout COVID. Flexible hours, so, you know, through, not by choice, however, people have been able to work much more flexibly, which has brought lots of rewards and also leads into the smart working work we want to do in the future. We've done lots of learning around COVID and how we've handled that and embedded that into this next response phase. And also we have developed new approaches to training and engagement, and we've got a real wellbeing focus now in the organisation. So this first set of game changes then, so you can see on the left hand side here, this is the vision that we pulled together that staff said they wanted from their leaders, and that's what we've been working towards achieving. And towards that, these are our three kind of big game changes. So a new talent management system, so not ad hoc pieces of work, so a proper system which is underpinned by strategic workforce planning, so we know who is going on through that, who needs to learn what, and a comprehensive and curated approach to leadership and management development, utilising apprenticeships. So we've got leadership and management apprenticeships lined up to start so that we can use that levy efficiently. Also, we're working with all leaders to make sure that we've got a common narrative about the culture we're growing, because we need to make sure that the leadership actions match our words. So we can be talking about, we want a learning culture, and people are safe to learn, contribute and challenge. If we don't demonstrate that, it will just fall flat. So we're doing a lot of work with leaders to make sure that that happens. So these are some of the things we want people to be saying once we're successful with this work. So we want all our leaders to be saying, which they weren't saying previously, I feel well prepared for my leadership role. I know what we need to do and where we're going as a service and what my contribution is, because that clarity from leadership is really important. So around the next section, learning and development, we're talking about creating learning culture and providing opportunities across the whole staff group to learn and to also to take ownership of their own learning and development. So the first piece of work, which is one of the SAFE 2 strands of work, and you'll see this pop up in 3 different places across this, is around building that learning culture and supporting people to be able to understand and transform their leadership by choosing inclusion. So inclusion is a choice. We've got the tools now to be able to build that, what we call psychological safety or trust, to make sure that people feel included, that their voice is heard. And that's embedded in the leadership development and also in our team development work that we're doing. Matt's going to talk to you about this too. So this is about developing non-technical skills for everybody. And that's because we're curating, so pulling together lots of relevant and self-accessible content, online content and virtual content to support people to take ownership of their own personal development. So that means everyone has access to things that will help and support them, whatever role they're doing, and whether they're heading for a leadership role or not, that applies for everybody. And then again, around our apprenticeship levy and making the most of that, using our technical training expertise to maximise that efficiency. And another piece of work to make sure that our operational staff are safe, professional and high performing, which is underpinned by engaged safety culture. And in the section further down, I'll talk about engaged safety culture and how the work we're doing around being safe to learn, contribute, and challenge will help to support that. So I'm going to bring Matt in now because he's going to talk to you in a bit more detail about and bring this to life a bit and show you exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, I think I've got a couple of questions for you, Michelle, before we move on. I would like to ask you, and maybe Joe, can you expand a bit in regard to our apprentices and the apprenticeship levy work that's been going on? Because I think we would be interested in that. And then I think I've got Linda would like to come in. So if you'd like to deal with the apprenticeship levy first, and then I'll bring Linda in. Thank you.
Joe, did you want to take that? Did you want me?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Councillor. So yes, so the apprenticeship levy, as you know, oh, sorry, I'm just going to make sure my computer doesn't turn off while I just quickly change that. Thank you. So as members will know, large organisations like us have to pay into a levy, which is something that we have to do quite a large amount of money every year. We have just put together a working group together to revise our apprenticeship strategy, because through our reporting we realised that we weren't utilising the levy as much as we wanted to, and we've got some unspent funds in there. We've just, funnily enough, Jane has been fantastic with help on that, and she's actually we've been using some experts in DELT to help us do that, and also someone in Michelle's team who's also been working on apprenticeships and has a good career in that. I've got a meeting next week to sign off the strategy. We'll then bring that again, we'll probably report that to HRMD so you can see how we're going to then utilise apprentices right across the service. Members may or may not know we were the first service in the country to design and utilise an on-call firefighter apprenticeship. We've been piloting that, and we've just got the results will be part of this strategy, and then we'll see whether we'll roll that out service wide. So it's a work in progress, Chair, but definitely there'll be some significant improvements coming soon.
Thank you, Joe, and I'm really pleased that you and your team are on top of that. But I think it's fair to say also that a lot of organisations have actually struggled to make the apprenticeship levy work for them, you know, private and public. So it, you know, a very good idea, but it hasn't been without its challenges, to say the least. So, but I'm pleased that you're on top of it. And also, I would hate to lose money or hand money back that we could be, you know, investing in our future. So thank you. And again, do keep us briefed on that. Linda, would you like to come in, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Michelle, for your report. It just so happens that during lockdown, I have just qualified as an apprenticeship assessor. So I should look forward to putting my skills to use, but I think probably not within the fire service. What I'd like to know, Michelle, is I think the initiatives that you're putting in place are excellent and will really benefit everyone in the service. But what is in place to monitor take up of what's on offer at the moment?
Do you mean in terms of apprenticeships or across the whole piece?
The whole set of initiatives for opportunities to people to be able to develop it in all these various areas. I think putting them in place is the right thing to do, and I think it's a great initiative, but I'd like to be sure that somebody somewhere is monitoring the take up so we know which bits are successful and how people feel about the opportunities they've been given.
Yeah, so if it's okay, I'm going to refer that question to Matt, because he's going to go into much more detail about how we're making sure that people are coming in through a talent pool framework and into a development pool. And that helps us to monitor who's using that through the development, but also ways of making sure that people can evaluate and take up some of the new virtual tools and platforms that we've got underway. Is that okay?
Good. Yes, and also I think to a certain extent to be able to consider the reasons why some people may not choose to take up the offer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Linda, if I may, if Matt can do his part of the report, and then if I can bring you back to see if what he's said is addressed your concerns, or you'd like to comment further, is that okay?
That's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Matt, would you like to come in, please? And again, can you just introduce yourself for the purposes of the broadcast, shall I say?
Of course. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. My name is Matthew Head. I'm the People Capability Manager, working with the OD and HR team. So I've got a very short presentation which I'm going to take you through, and hopefully I should be able to answer that question. But if not, please do ask me at the end, and I'm sure I can expand if needed. Okay, so you should hopefully be able to see my screen. There we go. So, so I came into role in April last year, just as lockdown kicked in. The People Development Project had already been running, and for me, I've got the business case here because it really reminds us all of those three key pillars that we're trying to achieve in terms of the project. So, firstly, trying to recover lost grounds in terms of how we develop our people. Secondly, we're looking at trying to establish a fresh approach to how we create and maintain the right workforce and leaders. And hopefully I'm going to expand on that in a little detail in the next few slides. But for me, the most important part of this is that fundamental principle that we want to equalise access to opportunities for all. So that's not just whole time versus on-call, it's not support versus uniform. It's about people who maybe haven't gone into a promotion process. They might want to stay within their role for 20 years and be doing an amazing job, but we need to make sure that they've got equal access to development. I think that kind of links to the question we had a minute ago, and hopefully I can expand on how we're going to start using some of the new systems to monitor that, because some of that trend analysis is really, really important, because what we can then do is really target our interventions and approaches to ensure that what we're delivering is going to develop and grow all of our staff in a really inclusive way. So the first, there's a lot of words on there, I know, but what I want to get across to you with this is our skills matrix, which the project's due to end April this year, which is when we really start delivering all of those interventions that we've been developing. So this matrix is built around the National Fire Chief Council approach to leadership, their leadership framework. So they've identified 4 key levels of leadership, and they begin with practitioner, which is leading yourself. So that's aimed from a uniform point of view at firefighters, but what we've done is equated that to the equivalent support staff grade. So that's firefighters in grade 1 to 4, ensuring that we recognise that everybody is leading. You'd have to be leading a team to be demonstrating leadership, and you need to be supported. As we move up, we've got supervisory management, which is aimed at watch managers and our grades 5 to 6. We've then got middle manager. I'm currently on a group manager development program, and I'm working with the equivalents of grade 7 to 9. And then we've got level 7 and above, which is area manager and brigade manager, grade 10 and upwards. And what we've done is we've looked at the core qualifications from a leadership and management point of view. And as already has been mentioned, we're very focused on that leadership apprenticeship, which we're exploring all the way up to level 7. So we're currently engaging with the central strategy, which Jane and the team are pulling together, but we've been working with local further education suppliers, and we've been going through a formal procurement process to make sure that we can work with different colleges to launch this leadership and management apprenticeship at all levels. And we're going to begin that in April, but it's our first trial at that. And we've also got other qualifications, so not all of our on-call staff will be able to engage in a full leadership and management apprenticeship. So we are developing a bespoke in-house option, and also considering that a lot of them have some key management roles within their primary work, which would mean they might already have an ILN3, a CMI qualification, or an MVQ. So we want to do this in a really efficient way so that we're not doubling up people's learning. We're also then exploring virtual sessions, which COVID has really helped us. So we've started delivering supplementary L&D sessions on people management, finance, project management. I think Steve Yates was booked in for one, Joe's delivered one. So all of our experts within service have been delivering some of these sessions. We've had some really positive feedback on it, and that's really helped with access as well. So that's what that picks up on that question earlier. That's one area where we've got some real clear feedback. So we have records of people that have attended, so we can start looking at where we target access to those sessions. And we've got other things like coaching qualifications. From a health and safety point of view, everybody needs a health and safety qualification at each of their levels, obviously role dependent. And then we've got those additional essential learning bits that we've got around manual handling, which I already mentioned by Chris earlier. We've got equality and diversity, unconscious bias. So it's really trying to pull together that whole range of training and development that people have got access to, but making sure that it's not just focused at one set of kind of staff, and we've opened it up to everybody. So that's our matrix, which will launch very soon. In terms of what we've delivered so far, so we've matched our NFCC leadership framework to our endorsement form. So when people go for promotions, we're using the kind of key identifiers in that leadership framework to support how we develop and promote people. And we're listening to the feedback off the back of that. And that's enabled us now to start pulling this down into some really clear guidance. So we wrote some PPD guidance probably about 6-7 months ago, and that was taken to the NFCC group. They've now adopted that in part nationally. They're using parts of that, and we're working with DELT and HR at the moment to bring together some really clear guidance for line managers and staff to support them and supporting staff to develop and move forward. Michelle touched upon the development pool. So we recognise that over the next kind of few years, from a uniform point of view, definitely we're going to have a lot of people leaving through retirement because of changes to pensions, etc. So we're trying to be really proactive in building development pools at all levels. My team currently have got, I think, about 80 candidates now, from crew manager, which is the process we're currently doing, all the way through to SLT. We've got small cohorts of people working together and developing. The SLT cohort, which Michelle's involved in, is our first mixed cohort. So we've got support and uniform staff. And the intention is that we'll roll that out across the board. This is going to be really linked to some of the workforce planning work streams as well, to make sure that we're looking for vacancies and issues up ahead, so that we can develop people and support them moving into those roles, but doing it in a really fair and open, transparent way, which is definite feedback we got from HMI, which we're looking to build upon. For me, this is kind of the glue that pulls all of this together. So previously, staff used to have a paper-based logbook where they used to fill out all of the evidence and reflections on the learning and development that they've done. I'm lucky enough to lead a fantastic team who during lockdown have worked in the welfare cell and everywhere, but they've managed to pull together this wonderful in-house tool. They've used a system which we've already got, which is the e-learning system, so we've not had to procure an additional system. It's been created so that staff at all levels will be able to record evidence within their current role. So as an example, if a uniform member of staff goes to an operational incident, they might have some pictures from that, or they might have a training session that they've delivered where somebody could film them running that training session. Through their mobile phone, they can upload this to the kind of cloud, and it will drop into this toolkit. And when they sit down with their line manager to do an appraisal, they'll be able to discuss and reflect upon that experience. This will then also help us in the future to select those that might have the potential to move on to other roles. This is being created for uniform staff, but also support staff. So if somebody within the OD team delivers a really interesting workshop, they want to reflect on that experience, they can upload those pictures and videos into this system as well. For me, one of the more important bits around this is the icon up there, which says My Development Plan. So we're now coaching line managers and individuals to create really clear development plans to support them moving forward. I guess in answer to that question earlier, what we've got with this system is some wonderful trend analysis. So we know down to every click that's made, who is accessing what, which enables us to look at that and think, are we targeting this in the right way? Why is there a real interest in that area? And we can almost target it by group and areas in department if we need to look for more engagement. So the other thing that we've procured, which I think is a wonderful step in the right direction, we've got a trial for Mind Tools in coaching culture, which in the first year is for 250 staff. We're trying it with the development cohorts at the moment just to see how it goes. Now, Mind Tools is a wonderful subscription which gives lessons, gives access to problem-solving tools. In lockdown world, it's been really beneficial for a lot of organisations, and I'm looking forward to us having the uptake on that. The other thing we get off the back of that is more trend analysis. So we know who's accessing what information, which is really useful as well from a wellbeing point of view. So we know how many people are accessing certain stress management items. It's obviously all going to be anonymous, but we can see trends in certain areas, which might mean we might need to support people. We've also got coaching culture, which is very much focused around trying to develop all of our managers as excellent coaches. They'll have access to 360 assessment tools where they can get people in their team to feedback on them. You can have big group 360s. There are psychometrics in there. Lots of stuff around mindset and growth. really looking forward to launching this. We launched it this week with the development cohorts, but we'll be reviewing it over the next few months. And lastly, we've started working really closely with NFCC. So there are 3 key streams at the moment. One is high potential, one is direct entry, and the other is supervisory management. So we're represented at that as part of that program, and we'll be updating you in the future as those projects start to filter out. So I'll just unshare my screen and just check if I'd answered the question that you had, and just wondered if there are any other questions from anybody else, really.
Are you okay for me to speak, Chair?
Yes, absolutely, Linda. Please come back in. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Has answered it well. One question that came to mind, though, is that I would hate this to be seen, reasonably or unreasonably, as being a stick to beat people with. I don't understand it at all, but there are an awful lot of people out there that are really just cozy in the position they're in and don't really want to either go the extra mile. I don't think that's fair in general to talk about anyone in the fire service not doing that, or feels that they don't wish to learn. In the back of my mind, I've got an image of somebody going through this with them and saying, well, you didn't do an extra course on this year, and why did you choose not to do that? So I just hate to think of all the fabulous opportunities that we're offering, which I would take up without any prompting. I know that there are certain people who really just want to do their day job, go home and get on with their lives, and are not particularly keen on being pushed towards doing all these other extra things, which I am in favour of. So how can we reassure them that having these opportunities available is marvellous, but there isn't anybody going to be looking over their shoulder and saying, well, you didn't show much interest and do X, Y, Z?
Yeah, I think you're right, and you've hit the nail on the head. I think the key to this is making sure that we communicate this properly, so people don't see like it's a stick that we're going to hit them with. I think we're taking our lead from the National Fire Chief Council. So Roy Wilshire made a statement around development and said that development doesn't need to be about courses or tickets like it's traditionally been in the service, almost jumping through hoops. It's very much about the difference we make to the people around us. And I think that's a real focus for us. It's about creating a culture where everybody feels safe to learn, and they've got the tools and support should they want to progress and develop. But it's just try not to force it down people's throat in that traditional way where we might hit people with a stick. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, thank you. One thing that has just also crossed my mind, and you may have covered it, and maybe I missed it, in terms of taking up these opportunities and the time it takes, are they expected to do it in their own time, or is time being allowed for them to take these activities during what might be considered time when they're on duty?
So the core opportunities and the core stuff happens within their role, happens within work. They have access to it out of work, and it's up to them whether they choose to access it. I know I've accessed a few of the kind of modules while I've been outside of work. So it's a real choice for the individual, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And following on from Linda's points, I mean, many years of experience has told me that, for example, equality and diversity training, if people are happy to go along to equality and diversity training, they're probably not the people that need to go on equality and diversity training. Do you know, it's the ones that are reluctant to do it. You know, the people that are happy to come along and talk about all sorts, you know, the way society looks and should look these days, are uncomfortable to do that, are probably where they should be, you know. So how are we encouraging some of our staff, you know, to come along and perhaps get out of their comfort zone a bit? You know, we all like our comfort zones, to be fair, don't we, one way or another, but how are we sort of encouraging those reluctant to engage? Do you want to come in, Michelle? I think you're muted.
Yeah, so some of that learning is essential learning. So there's essential learning and there's additional learning. So something like equality and diversity, which is really key to the culture we're trying to create, that is something that everybody learns about, but they learn about it in different ways. So it doesn't necessarily mean everyone has the same kind of level. It is tailored to the role they do and what we do in the organisation.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to continue sharing?
Yeah, I mean the other issue I'd like to pick up now, because it was alluded to, I think, in the paperwork there, and it's the issue around bullying, for example, and an acceptable culture in the organisation. Now, clearly, this was something that has come up through the inspection, and I think it's something that this committee has wanted to take a bit more of an interest in. But obviously, with COVID and everything going on, we have been a little bit on the back foot. But in the first instance, is to really understand what came out of the inspection in terms of some of the findings, and what was it, a representative sample, or was it not? Was it actually representative of things overall in the organisation? Because if it is, then we obviously need to take that seriously, and we need to take the individuals that were affected by that seriously. But then again, the other option is if it's not representative, that puts another context on it. And I'm not sure we've been able to do that really as members, since because of all the other the national crisis, etc. So it's really just to get your feel. I mean, my indication is potentially some of the potential bullying could be coming through a bad watch culture, for example, where a woman has joined the watch, or somebody that of a BME or whatever, or just not part of that sort of social group. But as members, it's quite hard in the pandemic without getting out and about and talking to people to get a feel of it. So, Joe, did you want to come in on that, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. So we've been doing a lot of work on this, and Michelle's going to talk about in a moment where the Safe 2 intervention comes in. Just for members' information, myself and the Chief Fire Officer, we've got one more tranche to go, but have been speaking to every single whole time watch, and we're doing this right across the service, although we're starting with the whole time watches, about exactly this issue, and it's to try and understand their experiences and what they think. Interestingly, when we had the recent COVID audit, we've seen a noticeable difference, huge reduction actually in the cases of where people felt that they may have experienced bullying and harassment. So that's absolutely going in the right direction. It's not always. So I think perhaps in the past, where cultural work around whole time watches and other stations was more of an issue, there's a lot of great work been done on that. That is reducing. So we actually see these cases across the service. It's not confined to whole time watches. We're doing a lot of work through pulse surveys, and we've just done a survey recently to again further understand that. We're also, and Michelle will talk about this too, we're also looking at early intervention, so to try and get in much earlier, giving people a safe reporting line when they're not sure how to report it or what to do, that they've got a very clear process in place that they can try and resolve issues early. Because as we know, sometimes those people who are bullies don't realise they're bullying someone through their behaviour, and it's about making them aware, and that's the very first stage. If we can mitigate that very early, that's what we'd like to do. But it's also an education piece for people to understand how their actions may not be inclusive and may discriminate against people. So Michelle will cover a lot more of that in detail, Chair, but happy to bring that further to later to the next HRMD if that helps.
Yes, I think that's great, Joe, because it was a sort of one of the sort of headline findings of the inspection, and I think we've got a duty to sort of bottom it out to see what it actually is in reality, both individually and corporately. So but again, I do understand we're in exceptional circumstances, so it is hard. Michelle, would you like to come in and continue as well, please?
Yes, will do. Okay, so just checking everyone can see my shared screen again. That's great. So Matt's given you
Yeah, Michelle.
Oh, right, okay. It does say it's sharing.
Sorry, negative. It's negative.
Okay, it might just be taking a bit of time to load up because it's telling me it is sharing.
I can see it, Michelle.
Yeah,
I've got it up, but I think it's the previous slide I've got at the moment, Michelle.
You should be on inclusion.
Inclusion, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, yeah. So to kind of lead on for what what we were just talking about. So there are various different reasons, I think, for people reporting in that. What we decided to do is take it at face value. So rather than kind of take too deep a dive into why might that be and have people kind of got it wrong, we've gone, right, if this is an issue, so we're going to address that, because people's perception for whatever reason is the reality. So there is an awful lot of work going on around this at the moment, and that also involved talking to people who felt they had experienced bullying and harassment, to talk to them about what would have helped them and what would help other people in the future. So this is where the second strand of SAFE 2 comes in. So Safe to Learn, Contribute and Challenge. So it's around challenging inappropriate behaviour, people feeling like they can do that. So we're doing some work with some of those people who've experienced it and also witnessed it, to develop a toolkit to promote fairness and respect. We've got a new fairness and respect policy. So it's giving people the tools to be able to address that as managers and as leaders, but also as people who are experiencing or witnessing it. So that will be a comprehensive toolkit to support that, and a way of reporting it anonymously or through a line manager, for example. The second piece of work is around a resolution approach to conflict. So this is links to a new kind of grievance policy and procedure. So before we get to formal grievance, we want to make sure and give people the tools to be able to resolve conflict and have important conversations before it gets to that point. So most of the things I will have been involved in throughout my career with Devon and Somerset, you could always see there was a point at which an early intervention would have changed the course of the whole thing, because once it gets to a formal complaint, essentially there aren't really any winners. It's a very stressful process for everybody. So there's an awful lot of work going around that. And then the other piece of work, which also links to engaged safety culture, which I'll talk about in that section, is looking at our investigation process and making sure that our disciplinary approach ensures that interventions match the intention. And there's a model that we're using for that, which is borrowed from aviation safety, actually, which is called the FAIR 2 model. So it looks at, once you get to the point of an investigation, what were the reasonings for that, so that we can make sure we learn from things that were genuine errors and mistakes. And that might even be within behaviour. So we only make sure there are kind of serious sanctions where behaviour was intentional, reckless, etc. So that will make a big difference in terms of people trusting the organisation, I think, to support them if they do challenge, but also, you know, totally accepting. And the real base of this is that human error happens. It happens, and we have to accept that. And if we want to be a learning organisation, sometimes they are errors and mistakes that we can learn from. So there's a lot of work going around that, and it would be really probably for the next HRMD, we could bring in perhaps Will and Audrey to talk about this work in more detail once we've had a review of where we are with that. We've just about got the results from a psychological safety survey where we've asked people about how safe they feel to challenge and to contribute and to admit to mistakes and learn from them. And so at the next, will give us a baseline as well for all this work. So at the next HRMD, we can report that and talk about this in more detail.
Thank you, Michelle. And I think that's what we're looking for, because again, I think we do feel a collective duty to keep an eye on this because of what's come back. What I would like to just sort of put out to you is, obviously having an inclusive culture is essential, private, public sector, everywhere. But what I think the extra factor we've got is a uniform service. There is a hierarchy, there is a discipline which is absolutely necessary. So how do we kind of factor that in, sort of organisationally, psychologically? Because bad behaviour in an office, for example, be unacceptable clearly, but here there's that other tension, isn't there, about orders and commands, and there isn't so much of a sort of, it's not so much as a debate, is it? If you're given an order, you're expected to comply with it. So how do we kind of, what I'm trying to say is, sometimes it's not what you're being asked to do, it's how you're being asked to do it, shall I say?
Yeah, and so that's why this is a systemic approach. So that is absolutely picked up, and that's what happens in military aviation, is that you may have a hierarchy, but you always have that protection to speak up if something is unsafe or behaviours are unsafe. So that's a whole model that I can talk about a bit more in the health, safety and wellbeing section, and is tied into some of the work that service delivery are doing around making sure the safe, professional and high performing is embedding that just culture approach. So just culture says it doesn't matter where you are in the hierarchy, you can make an error, you can make a mistake. And so within a framework, within a discipline framework, there are ways that you have to speak up, and it's a duty to speak up too if you see something that is unsafe, just to protect yourself or others or the public.
Thank you. That's really useful. If you can pick that up later on, I think that would be appreciated too. So I'll let you carry on. Thank you. Okay, will do. So the second piece of work that is making a big difference is our people by design approach. So this is taking something like the equality impact assessment a step further into thinking about what are all the things we need to consider when we're bringing a new piece of work in terms of involvement, engagement, around any kind of change and improvement. What might the impact on people be, and how do we involve them in creating those solutions? So it's a step on from saying, if we do this, what's the impact? It's saying, let's bring people in at an early stage and say, how do we design this to suit people? Because it's people who are making the difference and doing the work. We've also got a number of new staff-led networks as well. So it's making sure that people's voice and more underrepresented groups are heard. So there are a few new staff networks too that the team are developing and supporting. So workforce diversity. So we're in a better place in terms of the highest ever female representation in on-call, but it's still not in a good place. We still need to increase that. Our positive action has taken a hit during COVID because of the fact of not being able to get out there and talk to people and include them. So we've got some plans to come up with different and more creative ways to address that. We will be recruiting for whole-time firefighters, so there'll be another push on positive action within that. And we've also got now our Time sponsorship program, which is a sponsorship program for women who want to progress into leadership, where senior sponsors in the organisation support them throughout that and help them to understand the organisation and help them to point them towards various bits of development. So, and that's going incredibly well. That's another piece of work actually talk about in more detail, and bring Audrey in next time to talk to you about that. So Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. And I do think just to put on the record today, despite the problems, we have been making good progress in terms of recruitment of female firefighters, and I'm always reminding Joe that I think we ought to be telling people about that a bit more, because I think it's cause and effect. The more women that know that we're recruiting more and retaining more, the more we'll kind of get. So I do often have those conversations with Audrey, but I just want to put it out there that I think we have done some quite strong work, I think, despite the problems. Thank you.
I think you're right, and I think there's a lot more work we can do around who we are as an employer. So that's the other piece of work that we'll be looking at, is what is our workforce plan and who are we as an employer. These are some of the things we want people to be saying when we've kind of achieved this, these aspirations. So I feel safe and supported to challenge unacceptable behaviours. I feel I belong and my voice matters. And it's important to say that we want everyone. Inclusion means everybody, not most people. So we want everybody to be thinking in this way. And also we want our community to be saying, I can see myself as a firefighter at Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service. So there'll be more work I think we can do as COVID dissipates, hopefully, with communities on that too. So moving on to ways of working. So this is about our working conditions, our technology, our communications, our processes, and working together as one team. So these are the three big pieces of work that are underway now. First of all, looking at smart working for the future. So at the moment, we've got enforced home working, obviously, which isn't the same as having recent flexibility and smarter working. However, it has given us a real good springboard into what could the future of work look like for Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue, and what kind of benefits could we have from that. So we're pulling together a project around, and it's a people-led approach to a more agile and flexible workplace. And that's more flexibility to everybody. So kind of no matter what your role, obviously it depends on what your role is as to how flexible you can be and about where you work and how you work. However, the approach is looking at across that so that people can just have more of their life work balance as it should be, essentially. And lots of people have fed back that whilst it's enforced and they're struggling a bit sometimes with the isolation, which we've been supporting people with, you know, that flexibility to work from home and also to cut down the commute for a lot of people like myself who was commuting, you know, 100 miles round trip a day. I don't have to do that at the moment. To do that much less in the future, that would be of real benefit. So there's a lot of work going on around that. We've also just got teams in the organisation. I know we're way behind other organisations with that, but that's helping us to have better virtual meetings, etc., and work more collaboratively online, but to better. The second piece of work is around a planning performance framework and governance. So this is really about having a more of a visual focus and better tools to support our alignment and collaboration. You know, we've always had a planning performance framework, of course, but this is about having something that we can all look at what everyone's doing at a glance and just have a better view of that alignment to support more collaborative working. And the third piece of work is transforming how we deliver our people services. So this is making sure that the work we're doing in OD and HR is completely joined up, and we're making sure that together we're driving forward that people strategy. You'll be hearing a lot more about that, I think, as we go along. And these are some of the things we want people to be saying. So we want them to be saying there's more flexibility in their role to suit their lifestyle. They can easily find the information they need to do their job, share information and work collaboratively. It's not all that easy at the moment in a lot of areas. It's clear what's expected of me and I have the freedom to deliver it through my teams, because that's the other benefit of having some really visible performance management and knowing what everyone's doing, is that it takes away any kind of anxiety that you don't know how people are doing and what they're doing. And it means that you can, as a manager and a leader, give people more empowerment to just get on with it, give them the objectives and let them get on with it. And that is what staff have asked for in the people strategy. So moving on then to health, safety and wellbeing, and tied into Chris's world he was talking to you about earlier. And we're working really closely with Chris and others on this too. It's not a separate piece of work. So this is really pulling together a more holistic approach to health, safety and wellbeing. We've had a big wellbeing focus obviously since COVID, and I think it's made us see that our wellbeing needs to be front and center and one of the kind of key pillars of the organisation. So the first thing we'll talk about is the next strand of SAFE 2. So this is safe to learn from errors and mistakes, safe to contribute ideas, and also safe to challenge where things are, as we talked to earlier. And we will come back and do a really in-depth session on this. So this is about an engaged safety culture. So what we're doing is embedding a just culture policy and framework, which is just what I was talking about before, about having a framework of how people work, but also giving managers and staff the freedom to be able to speak up if things aren't safe, because that's an absolute must. If anyone's really interested in this area of work, if you search out the Haddon Cave report into the Nimrod crash, that will give you everything you need to know about why it's so important that no matter what your rank or where you are in an organisation, you're able to put your hand up and say, this isn't right, something's wrong. Because it's an absolute must of an engaged safety culture to be able to do that. So using more of a learning teams approach, so that is just going out, talking to people and asking them what they found out. One thing we do know, and Chris will tell you, is that our near misses aren't as high as they should be. We should be talking about near misses and learning from them. So that's one of the indicators. Do people feel like they can admit to them? That's some of the work that we're doing, and we'll be able to report on some of that when we have the results of the cultural audit into psychological safety too. Making sure that human factors is embedded within our investigation process. So looking at what was going on at the time for people when that happens, because it is human error, that is a fact. So that needs to be part of the investigation process. and also having a clear and visible reporting system, which you'll know Chris already talked about. There's a new system coming, because that is absolutely key to make sure that people have both the motivation and the support to have an engaged safety culture, but also the path is clear, so the way of reporting it is easy for them, which at the minute there are some issues with the existing system, so the new system will fix that. The second piece of work is about, as I just said, a clearer wellbeing strategy and a charter. We've been talking to partners and providers, and we'll be able to set out different levels of intervention around wellbeing. So, you know, everyone's general wellbeing, and then if people are struggling with that, there'll be different levels of intervention that they can access. We'll be building elements of wellbeing into the OD work we do around supporting teams and high-performing teams. So it's making sure that wellbeing is the lens that we look through everything we do, because if our people are feeling, if they're safe, they're fit, they're healthy, they'll have a much better experience and a much more productive workforce, as you know. And then the third piece of work that's going on at the moment, obviously linked to that, is our welfare cell, which I'm involved in with Will and other officers from HR. And that is supporting people through this COVID response phase with the welfare service that are both proactive and reactive. So looking after people, some of the specific issues that we have now, talking to occupational health about how we look after people who may have long COVID in the future, all of that kind of stuff to make sure people are well supported, even in this environment. So that's it. Those are our kind of big game changers. And it's really important to note that this is all work that is underway. This isn't a plan for the future. This is all happening right now.
Thank you, Michelle. Sam, do we have anybody who'd like to come in at the moment, please?
I'm not seeing anybody indicating at the moment, Chair.
Okay, thank you. In the absence of that at the moment, Michelle, firstly, the welfare cell, can I just, I mean, is that the right title, cell? It sounds a bit prison-like, or sort of, so I'm not quite sure if that's the right title, but I mean, I know I'll just put that out there. But secondly, again, trying to get a feel of some of the mental health issues. I just look at some of the media sometimes and some of the coverage at the moment, and I'm really concerned that there seems to be this feeling that, you know, as lockdown is ended and the you know, things do hopefully get back to at least a bit more normality, there's this general sort of social expectation that people will just snap back into, you know, unquote normal. Not that that's the thing I normally, you know, it's a difficult word in itself, but do you understand? And like, not only long COVID in terms of the physical, medical, but also the psychological, and how we're going to deal with that.
Yeah, so first with regard to the cell, I don't know, Joe, if you wanted to explain that. Did you want to explain?
Yeah, thanks. It's an interesting question. Yes, it does. It doesn't sound the greatest terminology. And the reason it's called a cell is when we moved into our internal COVID response phase, we essentially set ourselves up as if we were responding to a major incident. And when we do that, we have a gold, silver and bronze command structure. So at executive board level, I would be gold, and the chief officer level, that's gold. Silver is where Michelle would sit at that level there, around SLT level, and the people that are coordinating the work. And then the bronze, which normally ends up in cells, you'd normally have different groups. So you may have a communication cell, welfare cell, logistics cell, whatever you need for the incident. So because of the speed that we had to react, we decided that that was the best structure, and actually it served us really well. It's been the communication's brilliant, because if it works at a major incident, it works during COVID. However, I do accept that the terminology of cell probably doesn't sound great. It's probably a language that we're all used to. As we start moving away from the response phase of COVID and back into recovery and renewal of the service, we'll certainly change that name, and probably, which also might help, Chair, James unfortunately had to leave the meeting, but we're also moving a member of HR staff into the welfare team as well, and we're having an additional post there to make sure that we are accounting for exactly those things that you talked about.
Thank you very much.
And just to add that as well, to your second point. So for the first time in the COVID survey that we recently sent out, we're just putting the results together now. We added in the ONS wellbeing questions, which just ask people about their personal wellbeing generally. So we'll get a good idea about how people are feeling. And that is absolutely the top of our minds when we're thinking about bringing people back into work and going back into what is a new normal, essentially. Is never going to be exactly the same. So that is there's no question of going, right, let's just go back to normal now. That's not what we're doing at all.
Thank you. I mean, I know that we wouldn't, because, you know, as an organisation, I think we're hopefully on top of these things. But I do worry collectively and socially that, you know, I think we may have to push back as an organisation on that, you know, externally as well as having the focus internally. But I'm sure we'll do that. Hopefully, we'll do that anyway. Okay, Sam, have we got any more members who'd like to speak on this one at all? Or are we still looking like we're content? Sam, you're muted, I think. Sorry.
I was. Apologies. Yes, I was. I can't see anybody indicate. Oh, apart from Ron, who's just put his hand up.
Ron, if you'd like to come in, please.
Right. Thank you, Chair. This is through you to Michelle. It was the very first slide, to be honest, Michelle. I noticed a list of things that you're looking at, and one of them was fitness testing improvements. Now, is this to do with recruitment and as well as existing firefighters?
That's already underway. So Joe, would you like to take that, please?
It's a very timely question, Councillor, because today, after this meeting, I have my HMI interview to close off the cause for concern that we had around firefighter fitness testing. I'll be reporting that to the next HRMD to let you know how we've got on. But actually, we've seen some really strong progress. Our fitness testing's improved by over 13% in the last year. So not only have we, of all of our, certainly for all of our firefighters and operational staff, from a station-based level are being tested every year. We're also now testing all senior officers. So myself and the Chief Fire Officer have also thankfully passed our fitness test this year as well. And we've had a bit of an issue there around COVID. So we were about to allow people because to try and a lot of people have different body shapes and sizes, and therefore some fitness tests suit them more than other. And the main aim is to know that we've got a safe workforce. So we've put out a range of different fitness tests that people can do. We've had to restrict that this year purely because of COVID, just to 2. Once we come out of that, we'll increase that again to 4 different fitness tests. So we're on a really good trajectory for that. As I said, I've got a meeting with the HMI following this meeting today to hopefully close that cause for concern off. If we get the result that we're looking for, we will definitely be reporting that, certainly through this committee and to the full fire authority with all the data around that.
I do have another question, if I could, Chair, to Joe.
Yes, of course, Ron.
We set ours at a certain score level, don't we, to meet, and it's different all over the country. Are we looking to raise the bar, or just with the improvements? I just want clarification how the improvements will work.
Thanks, Councillor. So we use the national CFOA guidance around fitness testing, which the majority of services adopt. So we keep to the same level that others do, which is it's around VO2 max, and a pass mark is 42. So we that's what we aspire to. There is an amber category which some services look at slightly differently. So that's whether when you meet between, I think it's 42 and 36. And we are interpreting that at the moment, where we will do a retest, but immediately people have some restricted duties around that, so that they can still go to incidents and that our appliances are still available, but there's some tasks they cannot perform because they're in the amber category. And of course, then we have a red category as well. So we've adopted the national pass marks. That's the same. But you're right, what we're aspiring to in the future is to try and remove the amber category and just have pass or fail, because actually we're trying to support people, and we have a lot of fitness advisor out there who also give people to support with their testing if they fail. And we've got some really good case studies that we're actually presenting to the HMI today about how we've supported people through that.
Yeah, and I've got one more quick question. Is the criteria the same for male and female?
Yes, absolutely identical for male, female, on call and whole time. It's the same. The only slight difference is for officers, because they don't have the same operational requirements. The pass mark is slightly lower.
Thank you for that, Joe.
Thank you, Ron. So if we've got no more questions on this report, thank you for a very full report. I think we've had a really good debate today, and we'll look forward to those reports and feedback at the next meeting. So thank you to Michelle, Matthew, Joe and Jane this morning. And it was good to meet Jane, and I'm sure we'll enjoy working with her and the rest of the team. So thank you very much. Keep safe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Councillor, just there's a third part of the agenda. I'm not sure if we're going to be moving on to that around retirement re-employment.
You still with us, Councillor Hannaford?
Sorry, I'm on mute again. Sorry, I was just double checking the fact that item 6 is the retirement request. That is still in the public domain, is it, because it's anonymised, or do we have to move to closed committee on it?
No, it's still in part 1, Chair. If you could take the report now, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to double check. So, Joe, are you going to take item 6, please?
Yes, thanks, Councillor. So we've got 2 retirement re-employments for a 1-year fixed-term contract. We've got a station manager, and it's an operational readiness manager. What that means is essentially they're managing a group of stations, up to 5 stations in the Yeovil area. That particular one, we've had. So the role of an ORM means that you're required to live in the area in which you manage, because you also respond at night and in the evenings and over the weekends. So this particular person is asked to stay on. We do have some issues sometimes in that area to make sure that we've got officers in that area, and that would give us an extra year to make sure that from a workforce planning perspective, we've got suitable people living in that area at the right qualifications who can give the cover. It also gives this particular person time to kind of hand over all of that knowledge and expertise. The second one is a watch manager in our learning and development team. This person's got a very specific skill set and around accreditation, which takes some time to develop. We're asking for an additional fixed term contract for 1 year to allow us again to bring somebody else in and get them up to speed with the correct qualifications.
Thank you very much. So, members, we've had that presented to us today. Are we in agreement with the recommendations, please? Do you want a hand vote, Sam, or if we all put a camera on, will that make the system?
Put your camera. It will. If you put your cameras on, that would be great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Linda, can you on?
Oh, there's Linda.
Sorry, Sam.
Are you in agreement with that, Linda?
Yes. Yes.
Right, okay, that's 6-4 carried unanimously. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Again, I think we've had a really good, productive committee meeting today. Lots of more questions, often looking forward to the medium to longer term. But again, I think we've covered a lot of ground today and asked some important points. So I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting, if not before. So keep safe and keep well, and we'll see you soon. So have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and thanks also to our officers.
Cheers, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Chairman. Well done.
Thanks, Andrew. Bye.